I'm Vinzer Flinn, and welcome back to the Book of Flinn, where these days Raina and I are watching Clone Wars and Buffy the Vampire Slayer so we can get each other's impressions of our favorite fandoms. This week we'll be checking out Buffy Season 1 Episode 9 Puppet Show, and Clone Wars Episodes 13 and 14 Jedi Crash and Defenders of Peace. To the crew lounge we go. Tonight we're first going to do Buffy Season 1, Episode 9, Puppet Show, and there was only a one-line synopsis for this, but even just the title alone, I was like, fuck, here we go, strap in, we're gonna do a haunted puppet, aren't we? Sigh. Okay, so we start out at Sunnyvale. It is Vale.
Dale.
Sunnyvale is Trailer Park Boys. Right, I will get this right sometime before the end of the 7 seasons. All right, so we're at the they're gonna do a talent show at the school, and we start with Cordelia singing horrible, and Giles is sitting there. He's apparently overseeing this whole thing, and you just see his soul flee his body as Cordelia sings. And I'm like, how did he get stuck overseeing this bullshit? But then they mention Principal Snyder, this new principal, and then he's revealed, and I don't somehow through the last 20 some odd years, I didn't know about this. Armin Shimerman as principal. I didn't know this. And it's so funny because, as you know, I'm going through a big Star Trek rewatch right now.
Yeah.
Deep Space Nine. I was like, fucking Quark's in this? Sweet.
Yeah, and I really love hating this character. It's
oh
really,
yeah, I can see it already.
Yeah. He's a lot of the reason why I tried watching Deep Space Nine. I ultimately didn't. I definitely wasn't the target audience, being preteen when I was trying to watch it, so I might give it a go again at some point. But yeah, so we've got Quark running to school.
I love it. I love Armin Shimerman. He's great. He's just got, his voice is unmistakable, and he really leans into it when he does Quark. But yeah, I was delighted to see him as a principal, and it sounds like he's going to be a recurring character, so I am all there for good old Armin.
Yeah.
Buffy, the three amigos, as I'm now calling them, Buffy, Xander, and Willow. It's gonna be a lot of Three Stooges, Three Musketeers, Three Amigos jokes coming now. They don't want to be in the talent show, but Snyder's already got them clocked as the troublemakers. You know, he's obviously been here for a bit, so he fucks them into. He's like, "You're gonna be in the talent show," and they're like, "Oh, this is worse than death." But the note I made here is that with Snyder, we seem to finally have a considerable villain, way more dangerous than any vampire lords or demons. This guy's gonna be trouble.
Giles specifically chose librarian as a cover job to minimize contact with people, and then he gets stuck in being in charge of probably the most annoying and attention-heavy students, because, talent show, like Cordelia, or that stupid magician. And I also, in my head, when he was like, you know what, I didn't want to be around students. And I was like Xander was the way that my head ended that sentence, because he's constantly quipping him. He's constantly all these one-liners that Giles is like, get away from me. It's super annoyed. So
when Snyder sentences the three amigos to be in the talent contest, Giles, the look on his face, he's like LOL on his face. He's managing to keep it quiet. Buffy looks up and sees the dummy, Sid, and the first words out of her mouth are, "Ew, dummy." And we meet Morgan, who's clearly a terrible ventriloquist. And yeah, as soon as I see Sid, the dummy, I'm like, oh man, I'm waiting for it, the scampering of little feet. And there is a point later in the episode where the subtitle actually says something like scuttering feet. Yeah. Or something like that. You can't have a haunted dummy without those creepy little feet running around scaring you.
Yep. It was extra creepy when I first saw this dummy because I was about 10. So I was really into Goosebumps at the time. And there is a heavily featured ventriloquist in the Goosebumps world. So I was like, oh no.
Always a creepy dummy. There were some horror movies in the 80s, The Puppet Master, that had little marionettes, but the puppets were sort of good guys in a lot of the cases, but it was very scary. It was the same thing, that creepy puppet factor. Yeah. So you hear the scampering of feet in the girls' locker room, and this Emily, a dancer, she falls victim to something, but there's a voice that goes, "I will be flesh," and I'm like, "Oh, this is Pinocchio if he was going around gathering up all his parts, going, I'm gonna be a real boy, whatever it takes." The three amigos answer to being in the talentless show, as Buffy called it, which I liked, is to do a dramatic scene. We'll get back to that. So Xander says, "Willow, oh, you play the piano." He goes, "Oh, you play a little in front of people?" "Oh, no, then I don't play." And I'm like, that answer is so applicable to so many things.
Yeah.
Do you do this? Yeah. Can you help me do it? Oh, no. Okay,
Yeah,
no.
no, I don't actually do that in front of other people. I enjoyed that Flutie's juxtaposition of his speech about kids needing order and kids needing discipline. And then there's a student in the background with their feet like slung over the chair in the auditorium. And there's one running, like booking it in the background, running it. Like those were two easy detentions that he completely missed. So
You totally said Flutie and not Snyder. You're clearly not over Flutie getting eaten by those hyenas.
I miss Flutie.
He is no fertilizer on the school lawn. Let's see, where are we? Snyder actually talks about the rep the school has, which is kind of nice to see somebody with an outside perspective going, like, there's a lot of weird shit going on here. So it was just nice to see somebody say it,
Yep.
The gang's starting to ask around, and they're sort of zeroing in on Morgan already as a weirdo. And it's funny because I write down here, the whole school knows Morgan is a weirdo. And then Buffy said weirdo like 3 seconds after I made that note. And I'm like, see? But he's been seen arguing with his dummy, and he rubs his head and moans a lot. Hashtag no context. But the best line in this scene was Cordelia says, "To think, it could have been me." And Xander goes, "We can dream." I'm like, wow, rare burn for Xander. Well done.
Yeah, it just she's always has her own worldly self-centered perspective, and it's just very true to Cordelia. They don't use her enough in this for her to be on like that casting line.
Long term in this show, my thing I'm watching for is not, anything to do with Buffy or any of the three characters or Giles. There's got to be some redeeming quality to Cordelia at some point. Like, there's got to be. You're smirking, son. I'm trying to read your expression right now. Like, she's got all poker face on me now. I have no idea what's gonna happen to Cordelia. Just something. Anyway, Buffy goes to check out the weirdo's locker, and she just bashes her way instead. I love these casual displays of her power, just to remind you she could probably pull your head off.
Yeah, it's just there's like these little subtle like superhero moments just to be like, by the way, Buffy's not just another teenage girl. She can punch out a locker just by going, poof.
That's what you would use a super strength for, is everyday conveniences. Like,
I'd never need another jar opener.
Mine is, I'd want to be telekinetic, but only to move people out of my way.
Just gently drift them apart.
No, not gently. Flung. This is why I should not have superpowers.
I would still be late for stuff if I had super speed, though.
Oh, the Flash, he's always late.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, exactly.
He's like, I can really sleep into the last half second and still make it to work, and he's still late.
Yeah. He still gets stuck in traffic somehow.
That was something that always struck me as funny in 90s Flash. Barry Allen, he had like a fucking big Ford Taurus or something. I think it was red even, but I was like, why does he even have a car? Besides that he's the Flash, he lives in the middle of a fucking city. But he's like keeping this car to maintain a cover. Anyway, I digress. So we get a point of view, which is definitely from the dummies, and he witnesses her punch the locker out, and I write down, it's like, holy shit, never mind, I'm not fucking with this one. And I enjoyed how Snyder compared the crime of removing someone's heart is the same as smoking on school grounds after hours. It's pretty much the same thing in his estimation.
Yeah, everything's black and white. It's either like expelling offense or it's fine. Like, there is.
Yeah. It's like almost worse if he caught you with a cigarette. So we have a scene where Morgan, the ventriloquist, the kid, and Sid, the dummy, argue. And Sid's talking about Buffy's parts. We flash over to Buffy's home, where her mom says she's going to
Do
attend.
we not do phrasing anymore?
What did I say?
You're just like, they were having a conversation about Buffy's parts, and I'm like,
yeah, Buffy's heart, Buffy's heart and brain.
yeah, oh, okay.
Better redo that. Morgan and Sid argue, and Sid seems to want Buffy's heart and brain. Better?
Yep.
All right. I'm not even going to edit that out. I'm going to leave the first one in.
Just keep it all in.
So over at Buffy's house, her mom is going to attend a talent show. Buffy's like, fuck that, don't come. Which is what every teenager would say, really, I think.
Pretty much.
Buffy gets into bed, and I was 100% expecting to be something in the window. Half of me thought it's going to be Xander inappropriately peeking in for some reason. But I wasn't disappointed there. Sid's face in the window.
Same diff, really.
Yeah, I knew it was going to be something creepy that shouldn't be there. This is where the caption said, footsteps scuttling. Sid attacks, and Buffy's afraid for like the first time ever. This is her phobia is the ventriloquist dummy, which is hilarious. But she's put off by it. Everything else, unflappable. Totally unflappable. This, no.
No.
Let's see. Back at the talent show, Cordelia is just fucking haranguing Giles, and he's just like, I will fucking slap you, child. But he uses a great trick to get rid of her. He just says, your hair. And she gets so self-conscious, she just writes the rest of it in her head, and she fucks off.
It's a weirdly immature moment from Giles, but I can't help giggling at his one-liner where he's like, works like a charm. And it's just...
And then Buffy's trying to convince, she's like, look, that fucking dummy attacked me, but all her closest allies here are kind of doubting her.
Like, hello, you live in Sunnydale. Maybe give it a second thought.
Like, this is what you're skeptical about? I mean, seriously? We killed a giant mantis. Come on.
Yeah. Let's put it in perspective here. Giant bug person, hyena people.
I really, seriously.
This is where you draw the line.
Teenagers ate Flutie, and you have a problem with an animated dummy. This is the line.
Yep.
So Giles thinks he figured it out anyway. He talks about organ harvesting demons who have to do it, every 7 years, I think it was. And that's probably what's going on here. So for some reason, Morgan has Sid out in class. And is doing the exorcist head and giving Buffy the screw eye.
I had a note about that too. I was like, why is this dummy even allowed out in class? Like, would you go to school where somebody had like a puppet and they just had it sitting next to them? Like, would I have brought Nuggy to class?
Well,
yes. Would I have taken him out of my bag? Only the head. Would I have puppeteered him on my desk? No.
Again,
not
maybe.
Until the teacher started talking, at least. Like, you put the dummy away because then you lose it, and that's
what happened. Yeah, the teacher confiscates Skid, and I was like, this is not going to end well. But I like how he mouthed off from the cabinet. That was nice. Morgan comes back for his dummy after class. He looks like a heroin addict, and withdrawal. He's like, give me my dummy. But Sid's done a runner. And Xander has him in the library, and he keeps taunting it, and I'm like, I'm waiting for it to bite his fucking nose off, and I'm like Xander, if everyone leaves this room, you're a dead man. Predictably, they all leave, and I'm all, Twitter with anticipation that Xander's going to be flailing around the library with this dummy. Unfortunately, did not happen.
But why were they all standing like a mouse was loose? They were all like, oh dear, like they're hopping up on tables.
Yeah,
right. Like it's a
like...
mouse. Like it's not it's a dummy. It's not a tiny little mouse. Like it can get you. Yeah, and
Giles definitely looked like there was a mouse on the floor.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, while Xander's standing on a table, just even Coley popped out for a moment. He goes, why is Xander on a table? And I was just like, see, it doesn't make sense to him either. So
Buffy goes to look for Morgan, but finds Snyder lurking. But she actually manages to sort of stare him away. She sort of stands her ground, and he seems to accept that, and he goes away. Yeah. Back in the library, Willow has been in the toys and magic section, which sounds like a great adult shop.
I hear that shop is on Barrington Street, actually.
Oh yeah, I got a note here about how when Sid does disappear, everyone gets the fucking heebie-jeebies. Now they get up on the tables and shit.
Yep.
Buffy's looking for Morgan backstage, and she finds him laid out on the floor. With the camera shot covers his head. Apparently, his fucking brain got scooped out. And then, because it happens to everybody, chandelier drops on Buffy. I mean, I usually dodge them. I don't know what her problem was.
I don't know. She didn't have her tuck and roll ready.
Apparently, it pinned her to the ground perfectly.
Yep.
That was probably the most unbelievable part of the episode for me.
She didn't get impaled by one piece of that chandelier.
Seriously. Then LOL, here's Sid with a butcher knife. And I don't know, I had to laugh at this. That's why I put LOL, because ventriloquist dummy with a butcher knife is never not going to be funny. But man, what a twist. Sid is a good guy who hunts I honestly didn't see it coming. He turns out to be a good guy. If he kills one more demon, he'll break his dummy curse. And I just like, oh my god, this poor guy. He knew a Slayer in the 30s. He's been in a dummy form for like 90 years. Like, come on, help Sid out.
This is a part where I can bring up, there is a lot that gets past the CW censors in this episode. A lot of Sid's comments surprise me, like the term nubile.
Yeah, the way he said it too.
Yeah, and he like rolls his eyes and just goes back to a fantasy place of the Slayer in the 30s when he was still a guy and not a dummy. And also, once you go wood, nothing's as good. Really? That one made it through?
Later on, he actually puts his puppet hand on Buffy's thigh, and I'm like, buddy, she's like 16. Come on.
I know, and he's like, if he was alive and a guy in the 30s, let's say he changed during the film noir, so we've got like the 40s, late 30s, early 40s. Yeah, and this is like 97, so he's like 60 before you add on his human years. Like, gross, man. No. That's child.
Giles tells a nervous Cordelia to picture everyone naked, and she goes, ew!
Even one of the teachers, who must be a conventionally unattractive teacher, and Giles is like, perhaps not. And I'm like, you don't say that stuff in front of students. You don't talk about other teachers like that in front of students. Yes, you can think it, absolutely, but you don't say it to a 16-year-old.
Oh god, there's so much offside in this one. Meanwhile, Sid the perv, he's sitting up with Buffy above the show, waiting for it to start so they can root out the demon, because now they got to figure out who the fuck the demon is. And I actually did for a second think it was Snyder, because they kind of halfway intimated that it could have been him there, and I was like, nah, come on, that's too obvious.
Yeah, they were creeping around pretty good. I also would like to point out, back when Sid was saying nubile and stuff like that, Xander's face afterwards, it was like his sex face. It was not good.
I must have subconsciously tuned it. I think I just tuned Xander's face out like white noise.
Yeah, he is white noise. I just try to it's not appropriate, guys. Like, this episode was very much, was it written by Jaws? Like, it was very
It was a little handsy, this episode.
Yeah, especially the dummy.
Yeah. So anyway, Buffy looks around and she she finds where the demon stashes the brain and says she's never going to wash her hands again. Well, imagine a brain just falls into your hands.
It wouldn't fall like that. Is
that a stage brain?
Yeah, that is a stage brain. That is preserved brains, and once they go through a chemical process, actually become tangible like that, but otherwise they are extremely soft and very easy to mess with. So it would have literally fell out, like dribbled out, like on her hands. There's no way that it would stay perfect like that, like Jello, unless it had a bunch of chemicals attached to it.
How do you know so much about human brains?
I don't talk about work.
But this is my last show, everybody. Just know that I love you. All right, so I did enjoy it because it's the 90s in the show. Xander makes a Kaiser Soze reference. Do you know who Kaiser Soze is?
I know
Usual
the
Suspects.
name.
Okay, that's a good movie from the 90s. Kaiser Soze is a great 90s reference. if you were a guy in your early 20s like I was. So it's revealed that Morgan had brain cancer. Now, all I could do is I was like, fucking poor Morgan. He had a raw deal in this episode. So the demon's still looking for a big brain. And everyone's like, oh, it could be Willow. But they kind of pulled a fast one on us. It's the demon is Mark the shitty magician, and he's going to steal Giles's brain.
So my question is, how would Xander know that 29 by 29 or that 841 came out to a perfect root? Like it.
Yeah, well, that shows how smart Willow is. She gave him any number and the dummy believed it. Was she right? I didn't check the math. I just assumed she was right.
Pretty sure it is, but that would imply that Xander would have to know that he would also have to know the square root of 841 in order to know that it came out to a perfect square rather than a decimal.
Maybe he prepared that trivia ahead of time to test Willow and he knew the answer.
Yeah, it is 29.
All right.
So that's weird writing. It was only because Giles couldn't be there.
Giles, meanwhile, this is what kills me. He wants the smart guy's brain, but smart guy voluntarily lies down under a sketchy, lethal guillotine and lets his fucking head get locked into place. Like, what?
Book smart, not street smart, because
clearly
he definitely couldn't have gotten Willow in there, especially after the hyena thing. She's not falling into fake traps anymore.
He's not guillotine smart. He wouldn't have lasted a day in the French Revolution. Yeah, anyway. But Buffy comes in with the roundhouse kicks and fucking sweep kicks and roundhouse kicks the fuck out of Mark, who is the demon whose true form becomes more revealed as the fight goes on.
An actual magic trick happens. He goes into the box and disappears.
He did, yeah. He came out all scary and hellish. And of course, because Xander has to be useful once an episode, he's the one who saves Giles. Imagine if Giles got killed right then and there. That would be fucking horrific. What a way to go. But Xander saves him.
Poor janitors, they're running out of the library, and there's this guy standing there being like, what is happening? They're like, Giles, run! And they're running down the hall, and there's this poor janitor who's probably dead in the next episode by some vampire or something.
Yeah, it must have a high turnaround rate of fucking custodial staff there, let alone the teachers. Mark's demon form is revealed, and in leaps Sid with his butcher knife again. Hilarious.
At least it's sharper than that axe he was using to chop the rope.
Oh my! She might as well have been using the other end of it. Turn it around, Willow.
Just bite it. Just nibble at it. It's gonna be faster. The world's dullest axe. Oh
I would have fucking put my foot on it, grabbed Giles' legs, and just let the chips fall where they may.
I don't understand why he couldn't just slide out.
I don't know.
After the chest piece was like, yes, he was attached to the feet, but it's like, slide with your legs, my dude. Like, you don't need to still
clamp
be in
his head
there.
down good. So in a moment of poetic justice, the demon gets flung onto the guillotine, and they kill him with it. And what, like I said earlier, what a way to go! Like,
Yep.
Sid gets the final blow and into the heart. And what I did not expect is the fucking curtain opens and the whole audience is right there. And one, how did they not hear the audience? And two, how did the audience not hear what was going on back there? Like there was no feeling, because if there's a school play or talent show, there's people everywhere. That's one thing I didn't like. There was no people anywhere. It was just like this whole secret fight in the back.
Yeah, and the real magic trick is, did you notice the filming oops that they did during this particular heartbreaking scene where Sid finally passes away after killing the last one?
I'm not sure.
Where'd the knife go? He stabbed the knife. He fell over on the knife. They cut away. They came back, and it was just him. It's one of the bigger
editing fuck up.
Yep, it's one of the bigger goofs. So they like pick him up and they have him. And then Snyder's final line, he's like, "Is it avant-garde?"
They ended the show so abruptly, and his voiceover actually goes over the credits, which I don't think they've done in this yet. So I love that. And I'm like, oh, we got away with not having to see the dramatic reading. Nope, screech.
I was about to say, did you pause too early?
No, I let it go. I usually let it go a couple seconds just out of habit, but I'm glad I did, because watching Xander die on stage was actually pretty good. And then Willow just like, fuck it, and runs away.
I really wish that they did a little few more of these lighthearted, like, right at the end of the episode things.
It worked.
Unfortunately, this is the only time that you do see that.
Wow, really?
Yes, and I watched it and realized I really enjoyed this little like in screen credits thing, but no, you never see it again.
That's too bad, because that was probably my favorite ending of any episode so far. I mean, we're only 9 in, but it was up there.
But lack of caring about anything. Oh, Oedipus, you know where your shall be, and she's like slaps him on the head and walks back over.
You got to wonder if as actors they're trying hard to act badly or they're just not trying and it's coming out badly.
Well, they're probably like, okay, reenact your first play performance ever, or your first like, and since Buffy, like Sarah Michelle Gellar, had been acting since she was like 4 years old in Burger King commercials, you act like this is the last thing you want to do.
Stay very wooden and read good from cards.
Yeah.
So I have to admit, I was expecting just a creepy, dummy episode, but we actually got a kind of an anti-hero in Sid here. He's a little pervy, a little handsy, but he was on their side. So it was a twist that I didn't see coming, and so I actually did enjoy this episode.
Yeah, I like this episode aside from all of the gross references. And Xander's face, which is now burned in my brain, thanks this rewatch. It's but I do really enjoy the jokes in this episode. I really enjoy Giles in this episode. I really enjoy Snyder's introduction. This is a really good introduction for him because it really gives you an idea of what he's all about, and it's very consistent, and I really like what they do with his character.
Yeah, I think I love Armin Shimmerman,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think this character is going to be pretty interesting. But yeah, it was there was plenty of like horror movie element shit in this, and Slayer type stuff, but it did have jokes and lightheartedness, and it did actually work pretty good. So surprisingly, based on the episode title Puppet Show, I was like, I'm going to fucking hate this, but I didn't hate this, and that's the highest Vinzer Flynn compliment.
I sent a message to some friends of ours, and I basically had. So I walk in. So we're reviewing the Puppet Show tonight, and I walk into Ben's office, and he's watching the opening scene of the show, and he turns with the face on that's matching the dummy that happens to be on the screen at the same time, and you're like, "Oh yes, off to a great start."
Yeah, you came in and I turned around and I was like, well, I want to rethink this whole watch through. I was like, no, I'm not tapping out now.
9 episodes down, 130, what, 5 to go?
Oh, you laugh, but at least Buffy ends. The Star Wars shit doesn't. Okay, Clone Wars episode 113, Jedi Crash.
So when I pressed play on my Disney Plus, expecting it to continue where I left off, it started back at episode 11. So I'm watching this and I'm going partway through, and it's like the first couple minutes, and I'm like, I swear I've seen him dash through this separatist frigate again. And then I look and I'm like, oh my god, I have. Great. Oh. Restart, episode 13, Jedi Crash. The quote is, greed and fear of loss are the roots that lead to the tree of evil.
Yeah, shut up, Jedi.
Right. So the Republic are on the defensive, on the Outer Rim. Gloomy and Ahsoka and Ayla Sakura are basically Goomy and Ahsoka are Goomy. Goomy. Oh no. We're off to a great start, everybody. Gloomy and Ahsoka are going to help Ayla Sakura, another Jedi, who are fighting against a droid army and severely outnumbered. They're heading to rescue, and they're like, prep the gunships. And it's like, you didn't do that already? You're going for an... idiots, whatever. Okay.
Why aren't the gunships prepped now?
Like, why aren't you doing that while the flight? It's not like you do it when you get there. It's not how that works.
Terrible discipline.
They flip over to the separatist ship, and then we've got the weirdest droids ever. They look like robo-apes. They all had dad bods, which I'm pleased that the dad droid bod is making its way through, and there's droids of all sizes. But yeah, I just found these ones, like I looked up and I was like, whoa, what is that? Because I was expecting, Roger. So it was definitely a little bit of a switch for me. The super droids are deployed, and they're heading to the hull breach in the ship that Ayla's on. And why So she sends some clones down to go take care of the droids, and I'm like, why don't you go down? You could clean them all out with one swoop as you show us in about 10 minutes. But I guess she heads down there afterwards as soon as she hears that Gloomy and Ahsoka are on the ship or they're in the air. They're on a gunship, I believe. Is that what that is?
Yes, that is it's an LAAT, then a slash and a variant letter, but they've been commonly called Lardies.
Lardies.
But those are the gunships,
Those
Lardies.
ships make sense. Unlike you, Twilight. Anyways. So the super droids, they see the ship incoming, the gunships incoming, and they take off. And in this moment, I finally realize why they seem so familiar to me and I couldn't place it. And I don't know if I would have been able to place it had I not been over to my mom's this past weekend when she was watching Iron Man 2. They are the hammer droids. Those super droids are the hammer
Ah,
droids.
yeah, accurate.
Yeah, so forever hammer droids. So the hammer droids,
Hammeroids.
hammeroids, right? Wow. So they take off, and when they notice them, and then Gloomy's like, "I'm gonna head to the ship." And Ahsoka's like, "What? What? And he just like dives off, surfs one of them down into the hull. It's fine. That's no physics issues there. And then they he like slides in and then he just starts taking out all the droids. And I'm like, okay, I know Jedis are good, but this seems a little bit much.
My note I made on Anakin at this part of the episode is never challenge a Skywalker in a hallway because just is not going to go well for you.
No, no, it
I did enjoy this battle in the atmosphere though, as the ships were kind of crashing into the. It lent a kind of a. When you see the ships in the sky, it makes them seem even bigger. Creates this weird sense of scale. But the urgency of the battle as they're burning up in the atmosphere, I thought that was really well done.
yeah. So they're like, "Oh, our ship is coming to rescue you. It's coming to dock with you guys." That ship doesn't look like it's big enough for all of the clones that are currently on that ship. Doesn't leave me with good feelings that they're like, "We're just there to get Ayla, everybody else. Peace."
Yeah,
I don't really like.
clones get the short end of the stick again.
No, not really liking that. Jedi.
We'll photocopy some more. Yeah, Jedi can be pretty cold. I found that was kind of a theme in this little 2 episode arc we got there. Is
Yeah.
they do what must be done, but they do come off as pretty cold sometimes.
Yeah, well, they just left all of those clones to die. Like,
Yeah.
again, general HR department grievance is going around punching heads off of all of his droids, but at least they can be downloaded into another body and go, man, that guy's a douche, and just continue on with their day.
You got to think those two droids, Harry and Marv, every time they get downloaded into a new body, they're like, oh, not again.
Still the same programming. This is just a one-way ticket to No Head City.
I was kind of hoping to be a forklift this time.
So the ape droid is ordering the cruiser to be destroyed even faster because they weren't doing it fast enough for his liking already. Because he's like, I'm bored. My programming's over. I had to restart
I
this. I
hate
don't like
these
it.
droids.
Yeah, they definitely seem. They have Grievous vibes because he's like, I don't care about those droids. Meanwhile, poor Harry is just thinking about his friend Marv over on the Republic ship right now. Like, he's like, dude, my best friend's over there. And he's like, I don't care. Blast them all. And he's like, rest in peace, Marv. And just, hits the button, keeps going.
Yeah, these manager droids, they remind me of some fucking obnoxious middle management type who throws his
Yeah.
weight around and he's got no real power.
Yeah, all the weight's in his dad bod. So raise your hand if you thought he was gonna have his head punched off when he was like, but sir, the droids are there. And I was just like, I really thought he was just gonna have his head punched off. I've been so used to seeing General Grievous. So the Robo Ape doesn't care at all. He's like, I don't care, keep him going. So they step up their assault, and Gloomy takes out all the droids, meets up with Ayla, who has a French accent, which,
Yes, the French accent is the racial accent of the Twi'lek
yeah,
in Star Wars.
I don't know if I've actually heard a Twi'lek use a French accent before. Did they have French accents in Mandalorian?
Not so much. It's they don't. It's not a everyone has it kind of thing. It's just like if you came, if you lived in Paris, you'd have that accent or
Yeah.
something, but you might be French and live somewhere else and not have that accent. But anyway, yeah, this is the one. This is kind of the first time they sort of started doing the French accent for the Twi'lek,
Oh,
and
okay.
they kind of stick with it. Who and was voiced, by the way, by Jennifer Hale, who's done just about every cool woman voice acting thing in every video game you've ever played. She did does Ash and Overwatch and
He sounded familiar.
yeah, definitely. I think it was a missed opportunity to have the Widowmaker voice actor do it, but she was still very good.
Yeah,
Jennifer Hale's very good.
I did I thought that was interesting. I guess it's like the Twi'leks are a slave race, right? Like they've been enslaved a lot from what I'm assuming.
They're one of the races that was definitely heavily targeted by the Empire, and yeah, they were sought after. I mean, a lot of them because they were good looking, but yeah, Ryloth was taken over by the Empire, I think. But very oppressed race.
Yeah, so it's like maybe the ones that were able to be there, minus this Jedi lady, I guess. Which is interesting that she has the accent considering she would not have been raised on that planet. Those
Good point.
people there would have that accent versus the ones that were pulled and enslaved at a young age wouldn't have that accent. So I guess that makes sense. But yeah, why does the Jedi have it? Because even little kids with accents and stuff, if they get pulled even at toddler age, they don't tend to keep it. So unless she was pulled late, who knows?
Yeah, I don't actually know. I love Ayla Secura, but she's the Jedi that definitely does not conform to the dress code and clearly gives no fucks. She was in the live action movie too, played by Amy Allen in Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith.
So they have the plan is to escape to the ship in the lower hangar. Will that fit everyone? I don't think so. They're heading to the hangar and they run into Marv, who's like, "Uh-oh." And then he sees all his homies backing him up and he goes, "Ha, never mind." And then he puts the gun back up. He's like, "Ha, just kidding."
That was a Han Solo hallway throwback moment for sure.
Yeah. They still manage to mow their way through most of them, and then they realize they're way too late because the ship is starting to explode around them. Gloomy sees all of the fire coming up behind him, and he, in a weird moment of selflessness and bravery, throws them all into the next section and slams the door shut, and then does the force back to basically forces them into the next section with the force. Anyways, and then he uses the force on the fire to try to keep it back, but he gets knocked out and really injured. So I just found that was an odd moment of that for him. He usually tries to do something super flashy and heroic, but this was really just to get everybody at a dodge and protect the ship and them. I don't know.
Whereas Anakin would normally go for some sort of daring high risk maneuver, this was surprisingly selfless of him.
Yeah, it's almost like he didn't have time to come up with one of those stupid plans that everybody's like, "Are you sure?" And then inevitably blows up in his face, and he's like, "Worked out the entire time, exactly as I planned."
Maybe somebody had a word with him about his plans.
Well, obviously not, because he just surfed a droid into the ship.
Yeah.
So Ahsoka opens the door and rescues him, hauls him into the ship, and they manage to detach and get away. As they're about to dock with the Resolute, which I keep forgetting that's what that ship with Admiral Cleese is named. Separatists get a shot off, and they manage to injure or kill one of the clones, knock out one of the clones. Anyways, it activates the hyperdrive with no coordinates or incomplete coordinates, and they almost take the Resolute with them.
Yeah, if it happened anything like it did in the one of the new movies there, it would have been curtains for old Admiral Cleese
Yeah, because they would have blown
and
up the
everybody
ship.
else.
Yeah, they would have blown up the ship.
Yep, wouldn't have been good.
Gloomy's in critical condition, and now they're being launched off to God knows where, and Cleese is in the middle of a fight and can't pursue them, so things are going well, you could say. We get a glimpse back into the ship that is going somewhere, and Ahsoka and Ayla are overlooking Gloomy, and he's not looking too hot. Ayla tells Ahsoka to get to the bridge, and she's like, "No, I'm staying here." She essentially tells her to pound sand. And Commander comes in with some awesome news. We found out where we're gonna land. P.S. It's in the middle of a star. So they have to reboot the ship in order to reset the coordinates and take Gloomy off of life support. So the story's just getting better and better. And this is all like the first 5 minutes. That's why I was like, this episode, there's a lot happening in here. I'm like 3 pages in at this point, and it's still just the first 5 minutes. The ship goes out of, drops out of hyperspace. Yeah?
Star Wars is hyperspace.
Yeah. Drops out of hyperspace. And you can actually see, like, the graphics I find are, not up. I mean, this show was made how many years ago, but they still managed to make it so that you can actually see the strain of the gravity force on their face as they drop out of hyperspace.
I found the scenic imagery in both these episodes was actually pretty darn good. Like I was like, wow, that's a great painting of the sky kind of thing. So it's dated, but it's certainly beautiful.
They flash over to Gloomy struggling a little bit because he's no longer on life support, and I'm like, get used to breathing in that mask there, Gloomy.
Yeah. Bad foreshadowing there.
They managed to dodge the star, but boom, there's a planet. And this is where it starts to lose me because there is no way that that planet should have life, grass, water. It is way too close to the star for anything because that star is like the sky. Because as the sun sets, it's still about this big.
We could spend a long time arguing and discussing sublight speeds. I'm not going to get into it right now. This is just another plot thing that I'm not going to address. It was just there.
It's like,
but I agree. I completely agree.
It's like trying to say that the planes in Africa and stuff are sitting there on Mercury that close to the sun. I was having some issues with all of that. On the way down, they lose an engine, crash, and they're checking out the sun. They're checking out the planet. There's crickets on this planet that's somehow not on fire. The plan they come up with is to roam the Earth blindly to find some civilization.
They're pretty fucked. They have no plan.
Yeah.
If you ask me.
Yeah.
Start walking. Hope for the best.
Yeah. And Ahsoka's like, all right, you guys go. I got this. And then they're like, no. You need to come with us for some reason.
Yeah, I don't get the arbitrary decisions with some of this stuff in this episode.
No. Especially, like, it makes even less sense at the end when they're trying to rationalize why they did that, but we'll get there. Ayla's like, nope, bye, let's go. And Jedi does what's best for the group. Well, splitting the Jedi power probably makes more sense in the run of it than leaving one guy by himself with someone who's supremely injured and taking 4, 5, 6 able-bodied people off to search for one direction. Like, even split up those teams and go. Like, this made no sense to me.
But they did leave him protected by Rex, who's just about the most badass guy in the Clone Wars. So there is that.
It's true, but they had 5 people and 1 person protecting. Yeah. It just, the numbers made no sense. They find proof of a civilization with carvings into a rock. Ahsoka deduces that they should live near big trees. Which they kind of do, but kind of don't. They live very far past the trees. It's like the rock is a trap to lead them to the trees.
It felt like they didn't live anywhere near the trees, but whatever.
I know, it was just really weird. Lazy writing, I guess. They're like, oh, go to the trees so that we can get some pods and then follow the pods.
I think someone did this, the pod thing just for a giant D's nuts joke. That's the first thing I thought. I was like, look at the size of these giant nuts.
Yeah. Rex stays with Gloomy, and then there's the Jedi paradox. As they're walking along, Ayla and Ahsoka are discussing the Jedi paradox, the need to be compassionate without forming attachment.
Oh, yeah, the old catch-22 of Jedi.
Yeah, how did that work out for them?
They're like, go out in the universe and help people, but don't fuck nobody.
Yeah, don't care about anybody, not even the person who raised you and treated you like you were their own.
It's
Mm-mm.
funny that I mentioned that because I don't know if it's canon or not. I don't know which comic it came out in, but Ayla Secura is the one who supposedly had a romantic relationship with Kit Fisto.
Back at Gloomy Central, Rex has something. Rex hears something and goes to investigate. That's it. That's all that scene was. Super necessary.
They're like, "Look, we rendered the scene. We're gonna put it in the show."
Tree City. It looks like Mario Land, especially when the pods start to drop. I was like, how big are these things? I figured the people were living in the trees and they were like launching the pods like security measures. It didn't occur to me that they were already gone. Uh, Again, very weird. So back at the base camp, Gloomy is waking up and he can sense the eyes in the grass. So he tries to warn Rex as he collapses. And this giant dodo dino eagle comes blundering out of the grass and pounces on Rex. And Rex gets manages to scare him away by getting a blaster hit into his paw. And you get to see these giant. What do we feel about these birds?
They look like owl bears from D&D, but they tend to stand upright. But say like a bear's body, but owl heads and they're feathery. They look a lot like owl bears.
Yeah. Felt like it
Very
was
dangerous.
like a velociraptor, but like
Yeah, they're
had
definitely
kept
going for that
evolving
vibe.
into an eagle. Over at Tree City, Meerkat City, I don't know what's going on here. They get attacked by the dino eagles as well, and they end up losing 3 clones right away.
I want to ask a question about. Did you see the subtitles when the clones got taken out? They said, "Oh, they got lucky and flesh." I assume it meant flash, but the subtitle said flesh, and I'm like, how did he get that name?
I heard flesh too, and I actually have a note to that saying, "Yikes. How did he get that nickname in training? Did he like to streak?" Uh,
Yeah, either way, how did he get that name?
there's some questions I never need answered. And then there's one who has like a boring name like Cameron. Like, how is that even in the Star Wars universe? Cameron.
What kind of stupid name is Cameron anyway? Don't worry, he'll never hear this.
Freaking Cameron.
He'll hear it in 20 years and be like, "Hey, fuck you, buddy. Love you."
So we flash over the the team Jedi running around what could be just through a circle of crop circles at this point. Like they have no idea. They could be just led on a wild goose chase. They have no bird's eye view. They could just be doing the same pattern, the figure eight all night. They get to Pod City, as I'm calling it for now. They all speak basic. I'm assuming that's what English is in the Star Wars universe, if I remember
Yes.
correctly. So I found it odd that they immediately spoke basic.
Star Wars just doesn't deal with it. They just assume everyone fucking learns all the languages and, languages like Huttese and stuff. But it's just, there's no universal translator. They just don't fucking even acknowledge it, which I kind of like. It's funny.
It makes more sense as they go on and kind of explain their backstory that they weren't indigenous to this planet. They colonized this planet to get away from all of their BS, which I kind of understand. Breaking off and going and living in your own society away from all the stupid people does sound like dreams
I'm
and goals right
constantly an
now.
ass hair away from it.
I know.
This race is called the Lurman.
They do not have the belief that Jedi are peacekeepers. I totally agree with that. They are soldiers, they are generals. They're not
Yeah.
peacekeepers. There's nothing peacekeeping about them.
Maybe before, not now.
No. They colonized this planet to get away, and I get it. Totally get it. I'm kind of with
Fucking
these
people show up.
The meerkats are not interested in helping until Ahsoka is like, but my master, he's dying. Like, my friend is dying. And she was smart not to say master, because that would probably not endear her to them by using, like, the actual names and stuff. But being like, my friend, that's something that they could relate to. So I thought that was a smart word choice on her part. He sends his son with the people he doesn't want anything to do with or trust. That also seems like a solid call.
You had to go in and watch his stories.
Passions is on. Get out of here.
Imagine a Star Wars
Star Wars,
soap opera.
Star Wars Timmy.
It'd be like organ music and finding people cheating on their wives with the Wookiee. You! Dun dun!
Dramatic jizz wailing.
Well, you could certainly create a lot of hashtag dramatic jizz wailing. Message Raptor, that's gotta go on the archive list.
Okay, so when is it jizz wailing like whale like WH, or is it jizz wailing like you're wailing?
No, it's wailing as in if you're a jazz musician and you're wailing on your instrument. That's what it's supposed to be like.
I've been spelling that drastically wrong. Okay.
I don't. How did somebody in this? I mean, jizz whalers has been a thing since the 70s. How the fuck did someone not say to George, like, look, you might as well call them fucking, I don't know, snatch bassoonists or something, like, or dick strummers. Like, it's not good, George.
Come drummers.
Lift come drum. Oh my god.
The percussion section.
Come drummers.
Oh dear. I need to not be on this podcast anymore.
We're going to strange new places where no one has been or should be.
Yeah. So Ahsoka's gonna go and bring Wag 2, which we learn his name. Maybe he says it here, but I didn't catch it until the second episode.
Same.
Wag 2, and he's like, the clones gotta go. I'm sorry, but the person with the shooty things, they gots to go. They're not staying here, but the person with the lightsaber, they can totally stay. So I liked the conversation that Ayla and T-Wat, that's his name, the Irish lemur, have about fighting for something versus killing for something, or killing something in the name of. And I did like that conversation because while I didn't agree with most of his stances or his staunch belief that if you bury your head in the sand, everybody will have the same beliefs as you, I did agree with his view on fighting for something does not equal killing. I did like that. There's lots of ways to fight for something, and there's lots of ways to fight peacefully or with peaceful intentions. So I did really like that bit. Even though I found the pacing of the episode weird, I did like this moment. A lot of the other stuff could have just gone. But I'm glad that this was in here. I really liked that. We flash back over to the base camp, and Dino Eagle's back, and he brought some buds because he's ticked. He heads over, and Gloomy gets mowed over immediately. He's like, I'm gonna fight. And then he's just like, that's it. Takes out Rex as well, just as Ahsoka and the clone show up. I didn't catch this clone's name. Who is this?
Bly. I believe he was the one that's attached to Ayla.
Okay.
And I believe we do see a live action version of him in episode 3. I'm pretty sure that's the same guy. I don't know.
Okay. Wag 2 manages to flip and hogtie one of these dino eagles. Thought that was pretty impressive. He convinces Ahsoka and Bly to drop their arms and actually just help him pull them over. And then they bring Gloomy back to the Meerkat village and they treat him. And Ahsoka admits to Ayla that she was right about going together, and because they wouldn't have found the village in time. Why wouldn't they have found the village in time? None of that makes sense. Like, it's a huge plot hole. They say that they're like, we have to get off this planet, and Admiral, whatever his actual name is looking for us. And I was like, who are they talking about? That I realized it was Admiral Cleese. I'm so used to the nicknames that I'm like, I don't know what their real name is in life. Don't put me on a trivia team. I had no other thoughts about this episode other than those meerkats must eat wonderfully if they can hog-tie a dino eagle.
Yeah, kind of like Ewoks. They look kind of cute and cuddly, but man, these guys are hunting and surviving, so watch out.
I don't know if they kill, though. I don't know if they kill. They might just be vegetarians.
Well, let's keep going to the next episode. It ties right in.
Episode 14, Defenders of Peace. When surrounded by war, one must eventually choose a side. Wonder what this episode's going to be about.
Forcing an innocent race into a war?
Gloomy, Ahsoka, and Ayla are all still stranded on this planet with the Irish lemurs. They're treating Gloomy and they're sharing their food with the clones. How is everybody just aware that nothing is going to poison them? I really shouldn't be looking too close at the story because I feel like I'm just going to punch so many holes in all of the logic.
I wouldn't dwell too much on the hard science of Star Wars. There leads madness.
The Separatist ship is incoming and they're like, "You guys did this." And they're like, "They don't even know we're here. This really isn't us. This wouldn't have happened. This would have happened even if we didn't show up." And they're like, "Nah, get out. Injured dude, up, out." And so he's like basically being carried out. They sneak out the back door just for time for a guy named Lock Durd.
Now, I hope you recognize the voice actor right away.
No, not at all.
What?
Didn't even flag it.
Oh,
The name sounded like the
my.
voice sounded vaguely familiar, but I just figured it was one of those voices I had heard in like episode 1 or something.
I just gave you a hint.
Nothing.
Oh my.
Was it George Takei?
Yeah,
That's awesome.
it was.
I'm gonna have to rewatch that now because I like George.
When
Takei.
he says Count Dooku in this better than anybody. Count Dooku.
He really does chew on the words. I like that.
Oh, he's great.
He walks up and he's so presumptuous. He's like, "You're now under the protection of the Separatist Alliance. Congratulations. We're gonna loot your stuff." It's
Oh, don't you hate this guy already?
yeah. Oh yeah. I hated him from the moment he stepped off of the ship because I was just like, ugh.
Lock Durd. Turd.
Lock Durd. Bunch of turd. He has to inspect and loot everything, but they're really just looking for Republic stuff and a reason to blow them up. Unfortunately, they don't find one, and T-Watt's like, "Well, don't worry. We're just going to be completely complicit in whatever you guys want us to do, because we don't want any trouble whatsoever." T-Watt says, "Sure, no problem," and Wag2 calls him out for it. "Peace for now, but at what price?" were the words that Wag2 used. And he's right. I mean, now what's to stop every other thing from coming over and taking over their village and hurting their families? And Wag2 goes behind his father's back and gets a guy named Tub, I think that's his name, to make sure that the Jedi get off world safely. Meanwhile,
Tub's probably like Mike to the Lurman. There's probably like 7 of them in that village alone. Which Tub? Tub Hammer? Tub-ass.
Tub thumping, Chumbawamba.
Oh, God.
Team Jedi are out in the wilderness, probably being hunted by dino eagles, and they're trying to find a way off the planet. And they're like, "Oh, well, hey, a Separatist ship just landed. Let's get it." So, of course, that's their plan.
The Separatist droid little detachment they sent down, they set up a base in no time at all. Like, they had walls up. They had like an impenetrable kind of little fort right away. I was impressed. No wonder they take over so many planets.
Super heavily fortified. They look and they're like, "Oh, there's no flaws in their security line." I'm like, "They're full of Rogers. I see nothing but issues with their security line."
Clones are like, that prefab stuff is fantastic. We'll never get in.
This'll be fine. Separatists have a new toy, and it's called the defoliator. Last time I heard of the defoliator, I had less hair. Like, what? This thing, I was like, it's gonna shave a planet?
There's a line in the episode that's George Takei. It's like, "Oh, I'm going to be defoliated."
No.
It's odd. I don't know what it is, but it sounds terrible or delightful.
I'm going to be so silky smooth.
Moisturize me.
Calm down, Cassandra. Now that we just flipped through 3 different universes, back over to Star Wars. Harry and Marv unfortunately volunteer for this experiment of robo versus organic matter. Isn't that a plot in something else where it destroys all organic matter and leaves robots untouched? What is that from?
Well, I think it's a sort of a trope in sci-fi that has been used. There's like,
Yeah.
mecha forming to destroy all life. It was actually funny that George Takei is in Star Trek. In the movies, they had the Genesis Project, which was like the opposite. It took a barren moon and made life out of it. But yeah, the reverse has been in too many sci-fi franchises to name.
No, it was in Star Wars. It was in Star Trek. It actually was.
Yeah.
It was with the Borg Queen, and they released a gas that would burn all organic matter, and it was when Data was becoming human. So he ended up losing the
Oh
little
yeah,
skin.
okay.
Yeah, that's what it was from. That's what it reminded me of.
Star Trek First Contact. Yeah, you're totally 100% on the nose there. That's, yeah, eats away organic, leaves the metal. That's exactly what's going on with the defoliator.
So the Borg Queen was taken out by a defoliator.
Oh my. I'll stop with the Takei, I'm sorry.
Oh, never stop with the decay. Decay is okay.
It's okay to be decayed.
Locke is talking to Chocula. Lock, Chalk, and 2 smoking boxes of cereal. They're
Episode name. Oh man. The jizz whaling one's got competition now.
Nobody wants to compete with jizz whalers.
Or cum drummers. That's gonna be in the internet forever now.
No regrets. I have so many regrets.
No ragrats.
Hashtag no regrets. They set off the missile, and this thing is actually a little terrifying as an organic being if this thing was ever actually created.
Yeah, for most humans there'd be nothing left but a few pins.
Something a robot would say, as a being of organic matter, this terrifies me if it ever comes to fruition. It's a successful test because everything is cleared out, and so was it Rex or Bly? Ayla sails down, swings around like Tarzan, swoops up, grabs her Jane, and then right back up to the tree.
That was a great move. She went to a great stunt there to save. I thought that clone was done for. I thought he was going to get defoliated.
He's going to be silky smooth.
A little too smooth.
Chocula encourages testing on the lemur colony. So the Jedi guess this plan, and they head to save the Irish lemurs. Gloomy Force moves the rocks to scare off the droids because they're going to the base first because they want to steal the ship and a couple of other goodies that they can get their hands on.
It just occurs to me that it's a weird choice to give these little Lerman people Scottish or Irish accent, because if there's two people, speaking as a Scotsman, that are less likely to fucking lay down for anybody fucking with them, it's the Scottish and the Irish. Like, you think you're gonna take our village, mate?
Yeah, it was really weird to hear an Irish person be like, yeah, sure, whatever, man. Like, oh, don't worry, you're not going to get any violence from us. And meanwhile, it's like, bar fight! While the droids are being picked off by Gloomy and the ground squad, the A squad, so we've got the A squad and the B set. A squad is Ahsoka and Ayla, and B squad is the boys.
I see what you did.
Thank you. The A squad parkours over the wall. I actually looked down for a second, looked back up and saw them parkouring, and I thought it was Gloomy, and I was like, excuse me, didn't we just say he was gravely injured? Rewound and went, my mistake, so I have that scratched out. They open up the door once they get on the inside and let the other ones in. And the droids are like, meanwhile, the droids are like, no surprises. What's going over on this wing? And like that one's being taken out because I think it's Rex, shows up like a little horror thing in the corner of the screen.
He did. He just sidled in. And I was like, whoa.
Yeah, he's just there. And they're all talking up here and he's like down in the corner and it's just his face. And you're like, this is
it's
the
like
last
your kid popping into your view wearing a clone helmet. You're like, fuck.
It's like The Office. Yeah.
There's some real ninja shit going on, so I loved it.
Yeah, Rex is a sneaky. He's been hanging around the Jedi a really long time.
Well, these guys, the shinies and the regs, they were just the infantry and stuff. But the farther up you went with certain clones that became, well, at least this is old canon, more undiluted Django. So the commandos and the ARC troopers above that were really independent. Rex is a soldier, but he's a commando. And commandos are essentially, Snake Eyes ninjas. They go in and plant explosives. So they're used to being sneaky. So Rex can ninja when he needs to.
Yeah, I hadn't seen that before because most times with the clone troopers, they just go in guns blazing. So it was really cool to see that side of their training and to see what they're truly capable of because we know Django and we know Boba and we know how lethal they can be. So to see that from the rest of the commandos is nice to see. And it was still really unsettling because it's just like, whoop, and he's gone. And then he pops up on the other side and he's like, whoop, and he's gone. Oh, and you're gone too. So rest in peace to Marv, the Harry and Marv of this episode.
Till they get downloaded again. We should have been tracking how much, because it's clearly the same two droids all the time. We should have been tracking how much they're getting downloaded and destroyed.
I literally have Harry and Marv in every single episode, so we're at 14. Just for this one, because I'm literally picking them out. I'm like, these two are the Harry and Marv of the episode.
Even if they're not being destroyed in every episode, they're having a rough war.
Yeah, they're having a bad time. Wag 2 is trying to warn the village, and T-Watt is like, no, no, no. Stick the head in the sand. He's just wants nothing to do with it. And I find that there's a difference between not wanting to join a fight, but you can't be that naive as to assume that the people that are constantly invading other planets are going to have the same morality code as you. I think that's incredibly naive, and that's where
I think it's suicidal.
I think that T-Watt really screwed the pooch on that one because he just assumes. He's like, oh, we have no reason to quarrel with them, so they have no reason to quarrel with us. And I'm like, buddy, that's not how it works with invading species like
anywhere.
Lockturd or whatever. So I got the impression he said this has been the way for generations. And I'm like, but I got the impression the way he spoke is that he was one of the first generations.
I assume he means that he's been teaching the younger generations because they said the younger guys said they were raised with a strict code and a lot of them didn't agree with it, but they had to respect it, which is
organized religion.
Dogmatic. Yeah, I hate that dogmatic thinking just because we've done it this way for 1,000 years. Don't make it fucking right.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the Jedi show up and they go, oh, we don't care if you don't want our help. We're going to protect you anyways. You do your way, we'll do ours. And the Jedi are setting up the shield generators, which is one of the things that they stole when they also took off with the ship. So a pretty successful venture for 5 people, 3 of which are Force users, 1 of which is pretty badly injured still. And they just managed to make this happen in 5 minutes when we thought that was going to be like the whole episode, essentially. T-Watt TF doesn't even want them to be defended. He just wants them to roll over and just be complacent with anything, which... And Wag 2, I can see the conflict he's having. He doesn't agree with them. A lot of people, like a lot of his friends, don't agree with him, but they gotta respect it. Lockturd is like, yeah, we're prepping to fire the weapon. Let's kill some lemurs. And the shield generators have such an effect that this whole scene just gave me Infinity War flashbacks. Like the front of the main soldiers walking through the shields.
Well, the idea of the shields is that it's supposed to deflect energy bombardment, but I think it's also supposed to direct fast-moving projectiles. That's why when people go through them, they slowly shoulder their way through them, because the shield's designed to... I think that's how it works.
To slow things down, yeah.
It's my headcanon.
I agree with that. So the first squad gets destroyed with one of them counting down. He's like, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yep, they're gone.
I made a note here about when the Jedi do attack the droid forces. Anakin in particular, for being injured, he carves quite a swath through them, and it reminds us of why Vader's so scary post Order 66 and when he's Vader, because although he can't do the flipping around anymore, he's more of a tank. He's a one-man army.
Yeah.
He wants to be.
Yeah, I mean, he took out that whole hallway in the last episode before he got back up. Squads 2 and 3 are breaching the shield, and they're going after the shield generators. And once the shield starts coming down, Lockturd's like, fire it again! But Gloomy's there, and he manages to disable the weapon. And this is when that infamous line of, I'm gonna be defoliated, as he's slowly waddling away from the thing, and then he's like, huh, I'm floating. What's happening? Am I dead already? And then he looks down and nope.
The first shell they launched that the shield deflected with the fire went around the village. I found that imagery quite powerful. Like they were all a shield or generator or two away from being fucking vaporized. Like, but it was like a way to save the village, but like the countryside and the immediate area is just fucking gone. So I thought that was pretty scary.
Yeah, especially if they had any sort of crops or anything out there, or livestock, everything. Like they just lost probably their entire harvest.
Well, they got room for a Best Buy and a Staples now. It'll all work out.
Yeah. Put a Timmy's there. Timmy's goes everywhere. Anyways, the lemurs, the younger ones are like, no, that's it. I'm sorry. We've got to stand up for ourselves. We've got to protect the world that we have and the life that we created here. And T-Watt still wants nothing to do with it. But they do pretty good. They get a whole line of droids. They sling them all down, and then Ahsoka like practically skips along and beheads them all with her lightsaber like a little girl. And I found the juxtaposition of all those droids getting their heads removed and her skipping and her being like a small, still prepubescent girl was really jarring.
Yeah, she took a bunch of heads. I already liked that move. It was great, very efficient.
Yeah, it was very horror movie with the horror creature being a little girl. T-Watt's like, yeah, I guess I owe you thanks, but for what cost? How about your life?
I would have been like, fuck you, man, and left.
Your entire village. Your life. Like, we don't want to thank you, but we just need you to realize how stupid you're being right now. Then the Republic ships show up and roll credits. So that was a whirlwind of an episode. Both of them were.
The Star Destroyer showing up at the end, I found the significance of it is like, the war is here now. It was like a dramatic way of saying that.
Yeah.
So Lock Durd was meant to be a recurring villain, but I don't know. It wasn't meant to be. I don't know if Takei was available or they just didn't go with it. But yeah, that a bit of a spoiler, I guess. But Lock Durd, I don't think we'll be seeing him again. But he was originally intended to be a recurring villain. I'm kind of glad he isn't because I hate him. But he is funny. But if it had been Takei voicing him every time, I would have been down. He would have been the villain I'd love to hate.
Absolutely.
Jizz wailing. Oh my.
Humdrumming.
God. Thanks for joining us this week, folks. We'll see you again next week for some more episode chat. At the time of this release, we're right in the middle of Mandalorian Season 3 as well as Picard Season 3, and they are proving to be wild rides, so expect a season recap for both of those. Until next week, this is Vinzer Flinn signing off.